When I met Gabriel, I wasn't looking for love. I was tired, burned out, working 2 jobs just to stay afloat after a bad breakup that left me with more bills than closure. I wasn't healed, I was surviving. But Gabriel made everything feel softer, easier, like I could finally breathe. He was polite in ways I wasn't used to, held doors open, sent texts just to say he was thinking about me, cooked for me after long shifts, and actually listened when I talked about work. He remembered the names of my co-workers, my favorite brand of tea, even that weird scar on my left ankle from childhood. It felt like peace, like maybe the storm had finally passed. And that's how they get you, isn't it? With softness, with warmth, with just enough love to make you forget to stay on guard. We moved fast. Too fast, probably. But it didn't feel reckless, it felt right. By month 3, we were spending every night together. By month 4, he'd already left his toothbrush at my place. His clothes followed soon after. Then came the night that changed everything. We were curled up on the couch, half watching a movie, half dozing. My head was on his chest. His fingers were in my hair. And then he said it. You don't have to keep working 2 jobs. I hate seeing you this tired all the time. I didn't answer right away. I thought he was just being sweet. But he kept going. I mean it, babe. You've been carrying everything on your back for years. Let me take care of you now. My stomach twisted just a little. Not from fear, from guilt. Because a part of me wanted that. The idea of not running on fumes every day, of sleeping in, of saying no to extra shifts without panicking over rent, it sounded like freedom. So when he offered a monthly allowance just to make things easier, I said yes. He framed it like a gift, something loving, something generous. And at first, it felt that way. I quit one of my jobs, started sleeping better, had time to actually cook meals, clean my apartment, read a book without passing out from exhaustion. Gabriel insisted it was no big deal. He had a good job, a tech startup, good money. What's mine is yours, he'd say, kissing my forehead. It felt romantic, safe. But then, little things started to shift. He began asking more questions about where I was going. Not in a jealous way, more like, why are you out so much if you're not working? He'd frown when I spent my own savings on small things, like a new dress or a coffee run. Didn't I give you money this week? Sometimes I'd laugh it off. Other times, I'd freeze. Because the tone wasn't mean exactly. Just disappointed. Cold. It was subtle. Soft control wrapped in affection. And I didn't see it for what it was. Not yet. But I remember the first moment that gave me real pause. We were at dinner, a new Italian place he'd picked. Everything was perfect, candles, wine, the smell of garlic and basil in the air. Until I reached for my purse to pay the tip. Gabriel stopped me gently, but firmly. You don't need to do that anymore. That's not your role. Not your role. The words echoed in my head the whole drive home. What was my role then? If I wasn't allowed to contribute, to choose, to spend without checking, who was I becoming in this relationship? A kept woman? A pet? A placeholder? I brushed it off. Told myself I was overthinking. That maybe this was just love. Maybe I just wasn't used to being cared for. But in the quiet of my own mind, something had started to shift. A slow unease, curling like smoke in the back of my throat. And I had no idea how much worse it was going to get. For a while, I convinced myself I was lucky. Lucky to have a man who provided, who insisted I rest, who took pride in handling things. That's how Gabriel always put it, like it was a matter of pride. That real men handled things. But over time, it became clear that handling things meant something very specific to him. Control. It started subtly, the way erosion wears down a rock. Little things. He changed all the passwords on the streaming services just to organize them. He wanted access to my calendar so we could plan better. Then came the shared account. He pitched it as a step forward, a sign of commitment. We were practically living together anyway. He made it sound so logical. And I agreed, because that's what I did back then. I agreed. One evening, I tried to book a haircut online, a small treat for myself. Card declined. I thought it was a glitch. But when I asked Gabriel, he said, yeah, I moved some funds around. I thought we agreed we were budgeting this month. We hadn't agreed. He had, and he wasn't sorry. He didn't yell. He didn't insult me. He just stared at me like I'd disappointed him, like I'd broken some unspoken rule. I laughed it off again. I told myself it was temporary, that he was just trying to help us save. But something inside me started shrinking. And that's when the questions started creeping in. Why did he always pay me in cash? Why did I never see a bank transfer? Why couldn't he just add me to his main account if we were so serious? I didn't ask right away. I was scared to. But I started watching more closely. Where he kept his receipts. What name popped up on the rideshare app. What time he came home. And from where. That's when I noticed it. A notification on his phone. One of those pop-ups you can't fully see unless you're holding the screen. It said, transfer received, thank you. I wasn't supposed to see it. He was in the shower. His phone buzzed on the nightstand just once. I stared at it for a long time. Something about the message felt wrong. I didn't recognize the app icon. And I definitely didn't like the heart. Later that night, I asked casually, hey, what app do you use for payments again? He didn't even look up. Depends. Sometimes Zelle, sometimes other ones. Why? Just like that. Calm. Smooth. Too smooth. So I dropped it. But something didn't sit right. A few days later, I waited until he was asleep and looked through his apps. And there it was. An account under a different name. One I'd never heard before. But when I Googled it, The pieces started falling into place. It was his ex. The one he'd told me was completely out of the picture. But she wasn't out of the picture. She was funding it. I stared at the transaction history, my hands cold. Payments. Regular ones. Like clockwork. I felt my heart pounding. But I couldn't move. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Not yet. Because in that moment, all I could think was, what else don't I know? I didn't sleep that night. I lay next to him in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece it all together. The payment history showed transfers every month, almost to the day. Same amount Gabriel was giving me, sometimes even the exact same total. And the message I saw, the one with the heart, it wasn't a fluke. It was routine. My chest felt tight, like my own breath was betraying me. And yet, I didn't confront him. Not yet. Because if I was going to bring this up, I needed to be sure. I needed more than a hunch and a few screenshots. I needed to know what kind of lie I was living in. So I started digging. The next morning, while he was in the shower, I checked his email on our shared laptop. He'd stayed logged in, maybe on purpose, maybe by habit. I don't know. But there it was. A folder labeled Archive Personal. Inside, messages to and from her. Some recent, some dated back over a year. There were photos, conversations about money, a few about me. One in particular made my skin crawl. She thinks I'm supporting her out of love, he wrote. But really, I'm just redirecting what you give me. She's basically living off your guilt. I couldn't breathe. I sat there staring at that sentence like it was written in fire. She was sending him money not because they were together, but because she felt guilty. Guilty for something. Maybe how they ended. Maybe a promise she'd made. I didn't care. What mattered was that I was the pawn. He was using her guilt to fund his lie, and using me to mask it. Suddenly, everything made sense. The cash, the need to handle things, the control over my time, my spending, my movements. He didn't love me. He was managing me, like an asset, a front, a living, breathing alibi. My ears started ringing. My throat was dry. But I didn't cry. Not yet. I couldn't. I felt numb, hollow, like someone had cracked me open and scooped out everything real. And he came out of the shower humming, sat beside me on the couch, kissed my forehead, asked what I wanted for lunch. I looked at him and saw a stranger in the skin of someone I used to trust. I said nothing, just smiled, because something in me had shifted. This wasn't heartbreak. This was betrayal. And betrayal doesn't break you, it sharpens you. I made a decision right then. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to watch. I was going to gather. I was going to plan. And when I was ready, he wouldn't even see it coming. For the next few weeks, I played the role. The loving girlfriend. The grateful partner. The woman who didn't ask questions. But behind every smile, I was calculating. Gabriel kept acting the same. Still affectionate. Still generous with words and control. He'd slide envelopes of cash across the table like he was doing me a favor. Like I was lucky to have him. And I let him think that. Because now, I had a plan. I started keeping a private record, photos of his transactions, screenshots of messages, a timeline of events. I printed some, saved others in a hidden drive. Nothing obvious. Nothing that could tip him off. I also got a burner phone. Not to spy, to protect. I started messaging people I'd distanced myself from since we got together. Friends. Co-workers. One of my cousins who always said she never liked the guy. Their responses were almost identical. We didn't know how to talk to you about it. He always gave us weird vibes. We thought maybe you knew and just didn't care. That one hurt. Because no, I didn't know. I wasn't complicit. I was conditioned. Bit by bit, day by day, Gabriel had built a world where questioning him felt like betrayal, where depending on him was a sign of love, where silence became my safest option. But not anymore. One night, I watched him sleep the same way I had that night when everything broke. His face looked so peaceful, so harmless. And yet, this man had lied to me every single day. Used another woman's money to control my life, while telling both of us we were the ones who mattered. I felt a kind of anger I'd never known before. Not explosive, not loud, cold, still, powerful. That's when I realized something. He wasn't careful because he didn't think I was smart enough to notice. He thought he'd broken me enough to never ask. He thought I'd keep choosing the comfort of not knowing over the pain of truth. But he was wrong. And soon, I was going to show him just how wrong. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Gabriel had a business trip, or so he said. 3 days out of town. Just enough time for me to move like a ghost. As soon as he left, I got to work. I met with a lawyer. Not for anything dramatic yet. But I needed to know my rights. What was mine? What wasn't? What protections I had in case he tried to twist the story when this all blew up. I also reached out to her. The ex. The woman funding the whole charade. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because she deserved to know. Just like I had. I sent her screenshots. Not with commentary. Just facts. Money transfers. Messages. Receipts. Dates. I didn't expect a reply. But a few hours later, she called me. Her voice shook. She sounded more tired than angry. I thought I was helping him get back on his feet. I stayed quiet. She went on. He told me you were just a phase. That you knew he and I still had financial arrangements. I thought you were okay with it. I swallowed hard. That lie stung more than anything. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation. He made me the joke between them. But now, I wasn't the one in the dark anymore. We talked for almost an hour. By the end, she offered to forward everything she had. Use it however you want, she said. I'm done. The next step was simple. I made copies. One for her, one for me, one for a friend, just in case. And then, I waited. When Gabriel came back, he kissed me like nothing had changed. I let him. I asked how the trip went. I made dinner. I handed him a glass of wine, the expensive one he liked. And then I sat across from him at the table, pulled out the folder, and slid it toward him without a word. He opened it, read the first page, then the second, and I watched something break in his face. He didn't speak for a full minute. Then finally, he looked at me and said, "You don't understand." I cut him off. "No, you don't understand. I'm not the girl you lied to 3 months ago." He stood up, paced, began spinning excuses, said the money didn't mean anything, said I was the one he loved, that I didn't have to do this, that we could start over. I listened, calm, silent. And then I said the only thing that really mattered. You don't get to rebuild something you never respected. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked to the door, opened it, and waited. He stared at me for a long time. Then he left. And that silence? It was louder than any scream I could have thrown at him. After he left, I waited for the crash, the apology, the angry texts, the manipulative guilt trips, but none came, just silence. And honestly, it was the most peaceful sound I'd heard in months. Gabriel didn't fight, didn't show up at my door, didn't try to spin the story, at least not to me. Maybe he knew there was no comeback from this. Or maybe, just like always, he assumed I wouldn't make it without him. But I did. At first, it was hard. I had to rebuild not just my finances, but my identity. I had to remember who I was before someone handed me an envelope of cash and called it love. I picked up freelance work again, moved into a smaller place, started saying no to things that didn't feel like freedom. I also started therapy, not because I was broken, because I wanted to make sure I never ignored my own voice again. And slowly, the fog cleared. I stopped checking his socials, stopped replaying old conversations in my head, stopped blaming myself for being fooled, because I wasn't stupid. I was trusting, and he weaponized that. But now, I carry that trust differently. Not in fear, not in bitterness, in awareness. A few weeks ago, I got a message from someone I didn't recognize, one of Gabriel's old co-workers. It said, "Just wanted you to know, a few of us figured out what he was doing, but we didn't know how to say anything. I'm sorry." I read it twice. Then I deleted it, because I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for apologies. That chapter? It's closed. I'm not who I was when this began. And the truth is, you don't need to be loud to win. Sometimes walking away is the loudest thing you'll ever do.